Welcome to the Inner Fire Climbing Podcast. I am Jesse Firestone. My guest on the show today is Hilary Sherman. Hilary came to my attention through my lovely editors Alex and Tina, who know her from being up in the Northeast. She's a bit of a local legend up there. This is a different episode than my usual. Fans of the show might know that I didn't really know at the start of the show why I named it Inner Fire. That's just the name of my LLC and a concept that I relate to personally. But over time, I realized that I really am interested in what drives people to do the things that they do within climbing, their inner fire, so to speak. Motivation and personal philosophy and identity are all fascinating to me as a coach, but also as a person. And upon hearing the briefest bit of Hilary's story, I knew that it would be an interesting conversation, even though it's not my usual kind of style for the show. Hilary suffered a severe accident in 2014. She went through many surgeries and complications, which we'll talk about, and she has since recovered and returned to climbing at her best. So most of the conversation is about that accident and her return to form. But we also touch on climbing advocacy. She's pretty involved in the Rumney Climbers Association. And we also talk about perimenopause, a new change that she is learning to navigate and something that I, as a male, have not really heard talked about a whole lot in the climbing media space. To me, Hilary exemplifies inner fire, and I'm super thankful that she was willing to have this conversation and be so open and vulnerable and patient with my questions. So a huge thank you to you, Hilary, and a huge thank you to you, the listener. And without further ado, Hilary Sherman. Yeah, how's it going?
Yeah, good.
Go good?
Just got back from work and got my protein shake and yeah.
Nice. Is your schedule like to work, come home, train? Are you like a weekend warrior, kind of like train during the week type person?
Yeah, so Tuesdays and Thursdays are usually my training nights. So Wednesday is a nice relaxing night and yeah.
Nice. Cool. Wednesday's a chill day. I like that. I used to have that kind of structure. Now I feel like I just climb when I can squeeze it in.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. You're making the best out of what you can, for sure.
That's good. That's probably the topic of the day, actually.
This is true. Being flexible is definitely, has become part of my norm. I think that's life in general, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see your training sort of dojo behind you. So for people who are, there's no video for this podcast. So for those listening, what's going on in the dojo there?
Oh, yeah. We have a ridiculously sweet setup. During COVID, when all the gyms around here shut down, we took the space above my husband's wood shop, which is about 1,200 square feet of space, and turned it into a sick climbing gym. We currently have 2 light-up boards. So we have a 2016 moon board, and if that wasn't enough, we added a decoy board, which is also sick and a great pairing with the moon board because the moon board is like pretty crimpy and the decoy has a lot of slopers and pockets and more like compression style climbing and more feet and the ability to set feet with hands separate as opposed to moonboard, which is tracking. So the two together are amazing. Then we have spray, we have 6 hangboards, we have 3 sets of campus rungs of different sizes, and we have a squat rack and an array of kettlebells and dumbbells. So,
wow.
I cannot complain about my training space. That is for sure. We have friends who come over all the time and literally use it as their gym as well, which we love. Like, we'll be downstairs hanging out in the living room and friends will just like come right in our door and be like, "Hey, I'm going to go do a session." And you're like, "Cool." And sometimes we'll even come up and just hang out with them. We've got a beer fridge and like sometimes we just hang out up here. It's awesome.
Cool. Yeah. I can just tell from the little snippet that I can see in the video that it's like a pretty sweet setup. And obviously from your description, sounds pretty awesome. I've got a whole full-blown climbing gym here in town that doesn't have any light up boards and you have 2. So you've got a 2 up on the local climbing gym that I have.
Oh, yeah. And we're spoiled brats because it is air conditioned, heated, and really great sound system. So
nice. Well, it pays when you're in the phase of life that you and I are to try to line things up as best as you can to make things easy.
Oh, yeah.
I always say, like,
For
if you want to train hard, make it easy to train. And I feel like that's a good example. It's like, yeah, have the setup.
reduce the barriers. Also, I live in New England and the weather here is, not always ideal for rock climbing. So having a nice training space is key because like right now it's spring here and I think I've had 5 days outside in the past like 2 months, which is crazy.
Oh, wow.
It's just been
Yeah.
so wet, especially someone like me who has mostly only weekends to climb. So when the weather doesn't line up, it doesn't line up. So I've been doing a lot of gym sessions lately.
And you're like mostly a sport climber, which people are going to find out about why that's true. So is like Rumney kind of the main venue, or do you climb? Are there other crags around too?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have other crags, but Rumney tends to be my go-to. But I do boulder when it's too cold to rope climb to extend my season, just because like the New England season is already like so truncated that if you want to climb more, you got to boulder. And we have amazing bouldering like 20 minutes from my house. Pawtuckaway is pretty world class. And so I will boulder there, but we'll talk about, how I don't necessarily boulder at my limit when I'm out there. But yeah, we have amazing rock climbing in New England, just not amazing weather.
Yeah, nice. I'm glad to hear that you still boulder because I feel like I sort of assumed that, but that's a good point. I mean, like there's going to be a season when it makes sense to go bouldering, and personally, I just think bouldering is like really, really fun. So I'm glad you still do some of it for sure.
Yeah, it's not my favorite style of climbing, but I see the value, right? Like strength and power, especially the bouldering at the rope climbing at Rumney is like pretty powerful and physical. So like, I feel like I can't get by on just rope climbing if I want to push the grades. Like I need some pure power. So bouldering I think makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it's just, I'm kind of a weenie when it gets cold in rope climbing. Like if it's not like 45 and above and like blazing sun, I'm not going out rope climbing because I'm going to be miserable. So I'm going to boulder.
Yeah, I feel that too. Like I've gotten so good at understanding conditions for bouldering, and I'm just not as experienced of a route climber. Like a lot of my hard routes have been either super sprinty, like short things, bouldery, or things at Smith where it's like you're on your feet and you can recover and get it back. But like if it's both steep and long, the numbness with cold temps is like it's such a legitimate problem. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. And for me, like I know some people once they get past that numbness, they're like good for the day. That is not the case for me. Like so if I take too long of a rest, I'm starting from scratch. Like my hands are going to get numbed out. I'm going to have the screaming barfies all over again, So yeah, I try to just keep moving, stay warm.
Yeah. And this is stuff you figure out living in the Northeast, I assume. Like you just kind of have to deal with it. Did you start climbing in the Northeast?
I did, yeah. I've always lived in the Northeast. I actually started with trad climbing, and I loved that, and that was super fun. And I was really fortunate to have somebody who was really willing to take me under his wing and like take me up pitches. I mean, we'd go climbing places and he'd like take a nap on the ledge, like anchor himself, take a nap. And he'd be like, go make yourself like a new anchor over there and then wake me up when you're done and I'll check it out, and, really took the time with me to like learn how to place things and be safe. And that was awesome. But then I sort of got to a point where I was like, I don't know that I really want to push physically trad as much as I want to. And that's when I started transitioning to rope climbing because I was like, this feels just a little better to try hard and not feel so nervous about it, like my gear placements or whatever, and to actually feel like I could fall because, the way he grew up trad climbing is like, you don't fall. So like, that's how I started is you don't fall. So I actually didn't fall in trad gear till probably like 10 years after I started trad climbing because it was just like, you just don't do it. So sport climbing brought like a way for me to actually more push my physical limits without having to be, so nervous about the safety concept.
Yeah.
And then, bouldering came along with that.
When did you start
So let's
climbing?
see. Yeah, so I started climbing in high school indoors. I went to a mall and they had one of those fake walls set up, like the walls that you see at carnivals or whatever. And
Mm.
I had never heard of climbing before. Like I was a totally unathletic kid, like no coordination, no physical activity, like we didn't even ride bikes as kids. Like we did nothing outside. And so I saw this wall at the mall and I'm like, what the heck is this? And I happened to be with like, a babysitter at the time. I think I was like, I don't know, 10 or 12 or something like that. And, I climbed up it and I got to the top and I was like, that was freaking cool. And, I guess like the people who were running it or whatever were like, not everybody gets to the top of that. Like maybe you're kind of good at this thing. And so then I looked for like a indoor climbing gym. I was living in Massachusetts at the time, and the closest gym at that time that we knew of was actually in Rhode Island. So that was like maybe an hour or hour and a half from where I lived, and I obviously had no license to drive. So my parents would drive me there like on occasion, maybe like once every couple months or something. Um, and I loved it. I always thought it was fun. And then when I went to college, the University of New Hampshire, they had like an outing club. And as an orientation before college, you could sign up for like a trip with the outing club or whatever. And so they took us to Acadia. It was a climbing trip
Mm.
to Acadia National Park in Maine. And so that was the first time I climbed outside and knew that this could, like, I didn't even know outside was a thing. Like, I thought gym
Hmm.
was like the thing.
Hmm.
Um, and did that, fell in love. And like the people who were running the program could tell that like I was really into it. And so they kind of took me under their wing. And that's when I started going out to Pawtuckaway, which is, super close to the university. And then, and that's when I started transitioning to sport climbing. That's how I met this gentleman, Darn, who taught me how to trad climb. Um, and yeah, and so
Cool.
that's how I got started climbing outdoors.
So was there kind of a point where you were like, learning to red point and starting to like climb harder and harder routes where you were like, oh, this is like, I identify really strong with this. This is something I really want to like take seriously.
Yeah, yeah. What's really kind of interesting is like when I went from trad to sport, all of a sudden, now that I could start falling, I actually
Hmm.
started being really scared to be on lead, which is really
Mm.
interesting because when I was on trad before and falling was not an option, it like was not crossing my mind. But now all of a
Hmm.
sudden, when I like can take falls, I'm freaking out, right?
Hmm.
So there was a long stretch of time where I was like, crying leading 5'9" and top roping my now husband, his 5'12" projects.
Hmm.
um, and so I struggled with that for many years, um, really trying to sort of figure that out. And I think, I read The Rock Warrior's Way and finally accepted that like the only way to get through it was to go through it. Right.
Hmm.
And so, I think it was like my 23rd birthday or something. And like, I was like, I'm going to take 23 falls today. And I went from
Cool.
like not taking any falls, like I would take always, to being like, today I'm taking 23 falls. And I probably cried a lot that day. And it was probably like now reading about fear management, it was probably the absolute worst thing I could have done for myself. But
I was gonna say
somehow
that is
it
a trial
managed.
by fire. I would like not
Yeah.
recommend that.
No, 100%. Like knowing what I know now, like I would never tell anybody to do this. But like when I was 23, there was not as much information around climbing, training, everything that there is today. So like I didn't know any better. And in the Rock Warrior's Way, he was like, you gotta fall. I'm like, okay, I gotta fall. Like, he didn't talk about like keeping your like anxiety level down and like not pushing yourself like too much. He was just like, you gotta fall. So I took a bunch
Hmm.
of falls and somehow miraculously it did manage to give me some progress to the point where I was like, okay, I'm psyched. I need to fall. No more top roping. And I just kind of like cut myself off. Like, if you want to do it, you got to lead it. it doesn't have to be hard, but like, we're not going to top rope anymore. And that's when I started to actually finally make progress. Um, and started like taking off climbs. And then, yeah, I think just naturally, like as you get sends, they beget more sends, and then you get psyched and you start kind of pushing yourself. And that's how, I started to kind of, progress through the grades and yeah, leading more,
Hmm.
bouldering more, getting
Yeah, kind
stronger.
of natural progression.
Hmm.
Were there big like plateaus in your athletic development other than learning to lead? And then was it like a pretty smooth progression from there? Or
It was pretty smooth. I think the mental historically is what holds me back probably the most, even still to
okay.
this day.
Hmm.
Once I started kind of getting comfortable leading and taking falls, it was really pretty good and stable growth. Up until, my accident. Really just like each year it was like more, more or higher grades, more volume.
Okay. All right. So we finally have mentioned the accident, which is part
Yes.
of what I wanted to talk to you about, and why someone introduced me to you for the idea of having you on the show. So tell us about the day. Let's start with, how do I frame this? Let's start with the day of the accident, or maybe even like, what you were trying, how long you'd been trying it, sort of like, get us into the headspace that you were in.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the year of my accident was like probably one of my best climbing years. The year before I had sent what was my hardest grade, not necessarily the hardest climb for me, but it was a 13C. And then the next year I ticked off 313s that season. And this was the end of that season. So I was like feeling really
Wow.
good. Actually, we had just come back from the Red River Gorge and I had flashed a 12C, which was my hardest flash. And so, it was sort of the end of the season, but I kind of wanted to like start prepping for like next season's project. So I was warming up for, what I had hoped would be the next season's project, which is a pretty classic climb, Predator. It's a
Hmm.
13B. Something that was at that time like super outside of my wheelhouse. Historically, I've been a pretty like vert techie climber. And Predator is super steep and kind of bigger holds with maybe bigger moves. So a little bit outside my comfort zone. Um, and so I was warming up to get on that, and I was warming up on this climb called Sally's Alley, which is something I had done probably, I don't know, 50 to 100 times before that. It was like a very classic warm up for me. I really like to warm up on climbs that have similar movement patterns to the project. It's kind of something I've always done. And this
Yeah,
climb was
smart.
very much like that. It kind of has like thuggier movement, a steep section, um, and, similar sized holds. So
Hmm.
anyway, this was in November, the end of November. It was like the week before Thanksgiving. And so it was kind of an unseasonably warm day. Like typically for me, I'm not rope climbing in November. It starts, or at least, not in New England. It starts to get a
Hmm.
little chilly for me. We had already had some snow that had melted. And so there was some icicles formed like at the cliff that were melting and dripping. And so my husband went first and hung the draws. And when he did it, it was totally dry. And so I was like, cool, all right, no problem. And then when I went to do it, somewhere in between like him coming down and me tying in and getting rigged up, some drips had come onto a key hold. And the way this climb works is that you kind of scramble up on this ledge. It's like a 5-5, probably even less than 5-5 scramble to get to a ledge where the climb actually starts.
Okay.
And, this is in 2014. In our area in 2014, people were not carrying around stick clips. It was not like a norm like it is today where like everyone at the cliff has a stick clip. So
Yeah.
we just didn't have a stick clip with us. It wasn't like a conscious choice. It was just not the norm for us. And so, actually, and you couldn't even really stick clip this climb the way it was set up at the time of my accident. But anyway, so I
Mhm.
scrambled up on the ledge, started the climb, and the first bolt is, quite a few feet up off the ledge. And so I'm doing the climb, honestly, not even really thinking about it because this is like my warm up. So my brain's probably not even like super engaged. And
Yeah.
my hands are a little bit numb because the rock is cold. And so grabbed a wet hold, couldn't feel that it was wet because my hand was numb, and just pulled down with full force, expecting to like go to the next hold, and popped off wicked hard because it was like, when you pop off a hold, you come off with force. It wasn't like a
Mhm.
gentle.
Right.
And so, my feet hit the ledge for like a second, but I had way too much force to like stop myself. So then I end up tumbling backwards off the ledge onto like the kind of scrambly bit.
The scramble.
Mm-hmm.
Yikes. I'm
And,
sweating.
yeah, it happened so fast that like, honestly, like all I really remember, I don't even remember having like an oh shit moment. All I
Mhm.
remember is seeing like lightness, darkness, lightness, because it was like as I was flipping upside down and turning, I'm like looking up at the sky, then my face is looking at the ground, then my face is looking at the sky again as I'm kind of tumbling before I
Mhm.
ultimately, hit the ground. Um,
Yeah.
so there was no time to even like think or react. It's just like, it just happened. And so, my poor husband, now husband, he was my husband at the time. Sorry, that's a lie. Um, basically jumps on top of me and is
Mhm.
like, I heard your back break. Do not move. And, at this
Wow.
point, I'm just like in crazy intense pain. Like, I don't
Mhm.
know if you've ever like, gotten the wind knocked out of you and you like can't even speak. It was
Mhm.
like that. Like I couldn't even talk. I think my poor husband, all I said was like pain. Like that was the only words I could get out of my mouth. And, I couldn't even speak. And then, so he immediately starts like grabbing backpacks and the rope and is just like kind of trying to like, stabilize my body because I kind of landed like on my left hip kind of at an angle. And so he
Okay.
just wanted to like stabilize me in case there was like any kind of spinal injury. So he like
Smart.
crammed all the bags and the ropes. Yeah. And then the pain started to subside a little bit. And I was like, take off my shoes. Because like my feet at this point were starting to like swell and my shoes were tight. And then he took off my shoes and then I'm like, take off my harness. I had just bought the harness and I didn't want them to cut
Okay.
it. So,
Yeah.
so he's like humoring
That's such
me
a
at this point.
funny
I know.
priority at that time.
I know. And like in thinking back, I'm like, this poor man just watched his wife tumble through the air, crash into the ground, and I'm like, take off my harness. And he's like panicking because
Yeah.
he's probably thinking like, what do I need to do to actually, but like, I don't
Yeah.
know
Well,
what's going
if he
on.
thinks you
Like,
hurt your back, like that could be scary to take your harness off for sure. I would probably just say no.
yeah. No. So he unbuckles it and just like leaves it draped there. And then he runs
Okay.
to finally go get help because we're the only people at the crag because it's cold and,
Yeah.
it was early in the morning. Nobody was there yet.
And
And
I don't know the
so,
Northeast, but do you have service at this crag or is this like a remote crag? Like, do you have to hike in? Like, what's
um,
the situation?
yeah, so it is a little bit of a hike. It's probably maybe, I'm a bad judge of these kinds of things, but under normal conditions, maybe a 10 or 15-minute hike, but it
Hmm.
is pretty steep.
Okay.
Okay. Um, I don't know if we just didn't have our cell phones or if there was no cell phone reception. Again, like 2014, like we weren't carrying around our cell phones like people are carrying around their cell phones today.
Sure.
Maybe that's just us, but like, so he runs down to go get help or maybe to get a cell phone or call someone. I don't even remember, to be honest, but like he
Hmm.
must have bumped into some people in the trail on the way. So then people start coming up. Um, and, a couple people that I didn't know first, and they're kind of like doing quick check, like they must have had some background in medical training or whatever. And they're like, holding my neck and like just kind of talking to me or whatever. And then slowly but surely, like a whole bunch of people that I know, like friends or like other people that I know are all coming up and everybody's looking at you like you're like dying. And
Yeah.
At this point, I'm no longer in pain. Like, I'm totally, like, fine. And so I actually think I'm totally fine. Like, I feel like I'm humoring them by, like, not moving. But I actually think I'm totally fine. And at this point, I don't actually realize that when I fell, one of the things I broke was my ankle, and the tib and fib actually both came out of my skin. And so I didn't know this because, I didn't move.
Okay.
Right.
Wow.
So like, cause when my husband said, like, I heard your back break, don't move. I'm not moving. So I don't know that, like, there's bone sticking out of my ankle and that I'm, like, bleeding. Like,
But
I think
your
I'm
husband
fine.
presumably knew that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And
Okay.
he's still like, I don't know how he maintained his composure when I'm like, take off my shoes, take off my harness. I don't want them to cut it. But,
Yikes.
but he used to be a paramedic. So I think and also he's like, he's super chill in panic situations. Like, he's the guy you want. Like, not me.
That's good.
I'm glad
I mean,
it was
it's good
reversed.
that he used to be a paramedic. Like, if you're going to take a fall like that, it's nice to have somebody around who has that kind of experience for sure. That's lucky.
And he's just like a super stable, like, he's the one you go to when, like, shit goes wrong. Like, he's calm. He knows what to do. But anyway, so he obviously humored me with all this. But anyway, so, like, I have no idea that I've got, like, bones sticking out. I think I'm fine. But obviously, people who come up the cliff, they know what's going on. They're looking at me, and, like, friends who I know are looking at me like I'm literally dying there, like, all super, like, grave. And all I can think about is, like, how embarrassed I am. Like, look at this freaking noob, like, ruining everyone's day. And every person who comes up with any, like, medical training or whatever is, like, asking me all these questions, like, what medications you're on and, like, all this stuff. And I'm like, cool, everybody now knows I'm on birth control. Cool, everybody knows I have anxiety. Everybody knows I have a heart condition. Like, I'm just thinking how embarrassed I am.
Yeah. Again, the priorities, right? So the shock does something kind of funny to your brain, I guess.
Oh, I'm sure I was in shock. I must have been. But anyway, so, like, eventually, like, we get, like, a rescue crew up there, and, thankfully, a whole bunch of people that I know showed up and started rigging up ropes and stuff, because this, like, carrying me out in a litter, like, with a bunch of people was just not gonna work, because it's, like, super steep. The terrain is not good. There's no, like, real trail. It's pretty rugged. So thankfully, like, two of my friends, they jumped on it with ropes and they started rigging things immediately. And there was, like, probably took about 15 people to carry me out of there. And the whole time I'm in the basket, I'm looking up at them and their faces are just, like, distraught. And I'm just like, I'm so sorry to ruin your day, because I'm just like, like, one, I have no idea how serious my injuries are. And two, I'm just, like, humiliated and feeling so much guilt. And, they asked me if I needed any drugs or whatever. And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And they put an IV in anyway, because I guess they assumed that, like, the pain would, like, kick in all of a sudden and be super intense. But it just didn't, until I got to the hospital. But yeah, and then they threw me in an ambulance and took me to the closest hospital. And then when I got there, they're asking questions, doing whatever. And that's when the pain started to kind of come back. And they were like, okay, for sure, we're taking an x-ray of your back, because Jed was insistent that he heard my back break. And so they wanted to take an x-ray of that. And they were definitely going to take an x-ray of the ankle, because the bones apparently were sticking out.
Right.
Still unbeknownst to me, like, I still had no clue, because, once the paramedics came, they put me in a collar. I wasn't looking at anything. And then as I'm kind of, like, laying there, I'm like, my right heel kind of hurts too. Like, why don't you take a look at that too? And so they x-rayed all of that. And then, while I was waiting for the x-rays to come back, I asked the nurses to take my pants off because I didn't want them to get cut. And I have really long legs, and it's very hard to find good climbing pants that are long enough for my legs. And so the nurses were like, all right, fine, we'll help you take your pants off. So they like helped me take my pants off. And then the doctor comes in with the x-ray results, and he's like so mad at them and so mad at me. He's like, you have a freaking broken back, 2 broken heels, and a broken ankle. Like, you should not be moving. But I was very pleased that my pants were saved. So to me, it was worth it.
How long did those pants last? Do you still have those pants?
I still have them. They've been patched many times, but I still have them.
Oh, wow. Jeez.
They're great pants.
Okay, so what was the breakdown of everything that was injured? I mean, your back, both your feet, your ankles.
I broke L2, which, as far as like broken vertebrae, is like the good vertebrae to break. It is like one of the least consequential vertebrae. So that was good. I broke both heels on both feet. I broke the tib and the fib on my left ankle. So my left ankle is the thing that's still in pretty rough shape. The heels healed fine on both. The back healed fine. I also ended up with some temporary paralysis in my left arm because when I landed, I don't know if it was from the landing or because they had me stabilized like on my arm for so long. But I had some temporary paralysis in my left arm. And honestly, that was the thing that was freaking me out the most because I was like, how can I climb if I can't feel my left hand? But that went away within several days.
Gotcha.
So that was sort of the tally. And then, the doctor was like, you need surgery right now. So they basically just drugged me off and sent me out. Like, so that was the end. It was like very quick. And that by this time it was probably like, I don't know, maybe 3 p.m. or something. So they drugged me, sent me for surgery. And then the next morning is the next thing I remember.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure so the whole day is it sounds to me like totally surreal because it's like, one moment you're just a climbing day and then you just spend this like profoundly long time kind of just laying around. It sounds like actually, I mean, it doesn't, I don't think boring is the right word, but like it does sound surreal that you just have all these people moving around you and you're like, I know that I can't move and I know that other people are taking care of me. But yeah, that's a long time to spend just kind of waiting for things to happen.
Yeah. And I don't know how long it actually took them to get me down, but I'm sure it took a long time for them to hike me down because they had to keep rigging up ropes to like lower the basket. So I'm sure that was, some amount of time and effort on their part for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's a staple of like all the mountain rescues I've heard about is like they just tend to take much, much longer than people kind of think. And there is like a drudgery to it, especially when people are in pain. So maybe it's like a small favor that you were not experiencing a lot of pain at that point.
Yeah, I think so for sure. And I'll say, I don't know what it's like in other areas, but in our area, it was really the climbers that got me out of there. When the paramedics showed up, they were not prepared. They had no idea. Like if it was not for the climbers, it would have been epic. So I'm just like so thankful for all the people who, as soon as they heard something, they just came from like crags from all over to like take care of me. It's
to help.
Amazing. Yeah.
Wow. It's also crazy to me, like, because I can relate to taking really hard impacts, but nothing of the type that you're talking about. And like, knock on wood, I haven't taken any really bad falls in quite a long time. But like one of the worst injuries I've ever had was a nerve injury. Like I hit my cubital tunnel on a rock while I was falling, and I just immediately lost feeling in 2 of my fingers and actually didn't regain it for like several months. And that immediate injury, it hurt really, really bad. But like, the feeling of like not being able to feel those fingers and not being able to manually like flex them or move them was like it's like existential kind of. So it's actually not surprising to me at all that the numbness that you were feeling was the one thing where you were like, okay, whoa, that is like a really disconcerting symptom.
Yeah, for sure. Because, the whole time during, the immediate after the accident and the hiking me down and whatnot, I knew I was okay, right? Like I could feel my toes. I was not paralyzed. Like, so
Hmm.
like I was calm because I knew I was going to be okay, whatever it was. But the hand thing, yeah, that freaked me out for sure. Like, and that was the least thing, you know?
While you were laying there, and it's like you don't even know that you have a compound fracture yet, but
Yeah.
you're in bad shape. Like, something has happened. Were you already sitting there like, okay, but as long as this thing in my hand is okay, I'll still be able to climb in the future?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it never even like crossed my mind. And, yeah. So to comment on that, the next morning when I wake up and like finally a surgeon comes in to talk to me and like tell me, the whole damage because, I had no idea. And, the first thing he says to me is like, you'll never climb again. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, first of all, even if this is true, this is not what you say to somebody like bedside manner,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but also like people climb with no legs. Like, like we have a
Yeah.
New England legend, Hugh Herr. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but
Oh,
he
yeah.
was a mountaineer,
I mean,
lost both his
yeah.
legs to a frostbite, climbed 513 with no legs. So like,
Well, he's a legend
never
here
correct.
because he
Oh,
climbed,
okay.
is it Parks? I think it's called Park City, the 513 in Index that's the one that he did. It's like a crack. And I think he
Oh,
built like
okay.
specific, um,
Legs.
yeah, prosthetics so that he could climb that
Yeah.
crack. But it's here locally in Washington.
Oh,
So
okay. I
anyways,
didn't
yeah.
know that
Yeah.
that part of the story. But yeah, so I'm thinking like who the fuck are you telling me? Like, first of all, like if you ask my poor husband, he will tell you. If you tell me I can't do something, like the exact
Yeah.
opposite is going to happen. Like I will legit find harder beta to do a climb if you tell me my beta is not going to work. Like I will
Nice.
poo-poo your easier beta because I
Yeah.
am a very stubborn human.
Well, maybe that's a
Um,
good mindset for a person to go through something of the magnitude that you've gone through.
yeah, maybe it helps. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm a stubborn human. But so he told me that I would never climb and that I would probably walk with a cane. And
Mm.
um, I was like, all right, well, whatever. If I can walk with a cane, I'll find a way to get to the crag or whatever. Like, um, but yeah, that's when I guess reality started to set in of like the situation I was in that like, I, both legs were bandaged at the time because the swelling was too severe to cast them. And, I was in a back brace and I was going to be in a wheelchair for a while. So, um, friends started texting, people were visiting at the hospital. I was there for about 4 days, before like we felt like we had the pain managed enough that we could send me home with like, oral pain meds. So I had been on like a morphine drip for some time. Um, I guess one of the messed up parts about this is that apparently the surgeon who performed my surgery was not qualified to do the surgery. He should not
Oh.
have performed it. He really should have just stabilized me and sent me elsewhere. A friend of mine who lives in that area is a physical therapist, and so she has dealt with this gentleman's patients and just kind of knows from like talking to doctors and surgeons and whatnot that he was not a good surgeon and often known for performing surgeries that he was ill-equipped to perform.
Mm.
So she messaged me and asked like, hey, who did your surgery? And when I told her, she's like, you're going to want to get another opinion as soon as possible. So as soon as I got out of the hospital, I, got an appointment with like, a local orthopedic surgeon closer to where we live because all of this occurred near Rumney, right? Like 5 minutes from Rumney, but I actually live like an hour and 45 minutes from Rumney. So quite a bit of a
Okay.
distance. And where I live is a little bit more populated. It's close to a university. So we have more specialists. The climbing area,
Hmm.
it's one small hospital, one general surgeon. They don't have specialists. And
Got it.
so, when we went to see an ankle specialist, my husband and I, when we, got back to the area. He pulls up the x-rays and like immediately is like, what the fuck is this? And like he actually swore. And that's when my husband and I first saw the x-rays. We hadn't seen them before. So like we didn't know, what anything looked like. The talus or talus, which is like kind of like the roundish bone that goes underneath the tib and fib, was actually at an angle. Like it's supposed to be parallel. So you have like a nice, like even parallel gap in between. And that's how your ankle actually moves. And he had put it in crooked. He had actually made it worse than it was, because when we looked at the x-rays after the accident, it was actually parallel like it's supposed to be. And something about that, I don't know what happened, but he screwed that up. And so the ankle specialist was like, I can't fix this. Like, I'm going to have to find somebody else. Like, I don't know what to do with this. And so
at this point, you're like, how many days after your accident?
This was probably by the time we got in to see him, it was probably 1 week after the accident.
Okay. So life has changed very fast at this point, and you're already like, okay, I'm already dealing with like secondary problems related to this primary thing that went wrong. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Totally. But like so thankful that my friend messaged me, because like we would have waited longer, right? And we would have had more damage because I wouldn't have known any better to question. In my mind, you don't question doctors, right? Like they know everything. Right. They know what they're doing.
Right.
So anyway, so he then connected me with a different doctor that is not an ankle specialist, but he's a orthopedic trauma specialist. So he deals with just like traumatic bone injuries in general. And he felt like he was in a position that he could work on my ankle. So probably about it was maybe 2 days after I met with them, the second surgeon, that the third surgeon performed the surgery. So he basically took everything apart because I had like a whole bunch of like plates and screws and weird things put in to like kind of piece me back together. So he took that all apart.
There's like a time variable, right? Like you don't want things to start healing and knitting if it's not like correct. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I will say that the surgeon who fixed me better told me that like there were missing pieces. Like there was like the first surgeon went in there and were like, these are extra IKEA parts, and just like, I don't know. I don't know what he did with them. No, it's true. It's like, I mean, that's why I say IKEA parts, because everybody knows what that means. But like, they ended up having to take bone from like my shin and like this other fake bone that they manufacture, because there was not even enough material to work with, because the first guy had kind of screwed it up so bad that they just didn't have enough material to kind of put me back together. But he did, as amazing of a job as he could. Ultimately, they put in 2 plates and 14 screws to kind of put me back together. And then I was on my way to sort of starting the recovery process.
Yeah. Okay. So by the time you get out of that, that's just the 2 surgeries, right? And by the time you're done with this process, it's only been how long since your accident?
So I guess, I think I had the second surgery maybe like a week and a half or 2 weeks after the accident.
Okay. Yeah. So you're still very early in the process of just recovering from the actual trauma itself.
I am still in super rough shape, like pain all over my body. I'm super bruised, like, everything is swollen. Yeah. Still can't like barely use my hand.
Yeah, it's like something that really comes out in your story, and something that I've heard from other people who have gone through really serious trauma like that, is just like the change in headspace. It basically just that going from like you're climbing, your life is about climbing, your identity is about climbing, to suddenly now your life is about like figuring out which doctor you need to go to get the right result that you need to get. You're like not even. It's not even step 1 on the recovery process yet. Like you're still like trying to like get back to the point where you can like, and I'm not trying to make any kind of joke about steps, but it's like you're not even at the starting point of being able to take steps
100%
towards climbing again. Yeah.
And I can tell you for me, like, I am a very independent person. I am in the I will
Hmm.
do it myself kind of thing. Like, I'm going to lift this heavy thing because I don't want to be bothered to ask for help. So I'm just going to find a way to do it. So
Hmm.
this is a very big dynamic change for me to like go from being a
Yeah.
very independent person to now being bedridden, needing help, showering. Like,
Yeah.
it was a big adjustment for me for sure. To lose that
Yeah.
independence and, you know, a lot for my husband to have to take on, to having a very independent wife who cooks dinner and does all the things because she likes to do those things, to being like, okay, well now I need to do everything.
For
So
sure.
yeah, it was a
It's on my
huge
mind.
change.
Like as a boulderer, or primarily right now a boulderer, like it's on my mind all the time with my risk management now that, like, you know, if I screwed up 2 years ago, it's very inconvenient for my wife. But if I screw up now, it's like I have a baby and my
Huge.
wife taking care of the baby. It's like a massive dynamic shift. So
Oh
I,
yeah.
try not to let that change my thinking like too much, but it's definitely in the back of my mind.
But it's a
So
reality.
yeah, I mean, so just from like a psychological point of view, did you see a therapist or like a sports psychologist or anything at any point during this process?
I didn't until much, much later, like many years
Okay.
later. At
Okay.
the time, to be honest, and I don't know if this is some kind of like some therapists would say like a self-preservation mechanism or something, but like I was just kind of like, all right, well, this is where we're at. I've kind of always been that kind of person who's like, okay, well, that sucked, but like, what's next? I
Hmm.
never really went through a like, why did this happen to me? Or like, I wish that I had done this differently. Like, I didn't even really replay it in my mind other than to try and like understand and learn from it, but not from a standpoint of like, I guess like thinking like, oh, why did I do it that way? Or like, I guess that's
Hmm.
not really me. I'm very much just like, all right, what can I
Just
do?
move forward.
And so
Yeah.
I immediately started like from like basically leaving the hospital after the repair surgery, like, okay, what can I do for physical activity? Like, what will you allow me to do? You know, can I lift 5 pound weights? Can I use a band? And just like immediately started being like, all right, well, how do I move forward? Because for me, the worst thing is unknowns. Like, if I feel like I can do something to make progress or move forward, I'm good. Like, as long as I have something to focus on. But like sitting in any kind of like a waiting for results or like waiting for something, that is the most painful for me. But if I can do
Yeah.
something, I'm okay. I can keep doing something.
Gotcha. So I bet your recovery went fairly quick then. You probably did all your PT and like took pretty good care of yourself and stuff. How long was it from
Oh
the
yeah.
incident until you like, you know, put your harness back on or like set foot in a climbing gym again?
Yeah, so I started one-legged top roping while I was still in a cast for my left foot because my right foot cast came off much sooner because it was just the broken heel.
Okay.
So as soon as the right cast came off and the back brace came off, which was around around 3 months, I was out of the wheelchair and into boots and on crutches.
Hmm.
And then I
Okay.
guess maybe it was a couple weeks or a month after that that I lost the boot on the right foot. So then I started going to the gym and top roping one-legged right away.
Wow. And were
And
you doing like finger training or anything in the interim?
yeah. So in the interim, my husband, even though he did not agree, built me a hangboard on
Hmm.
legs that I could wheel my wheelchair under.
Wow. Wow. Your husband's
Um,
a boss, honestly.
he really, I don't know how he puts up with me, honestly. um, but yeah, so um, I would, yeah, wheel my wheelchair under there and I would do some figure training or try and do pull-ups. Pull-ups were hard because, you know, from the wheelchair position, it's basically an L sit
An
and
LSAT, yeah.
yeah, was definitely not at that level. So it was, yeah, more fingerboarding or whatever. Sometimes he would take me to the climbing gym and I would wheel my wheelchair around the climbing gym and use some of their hangboards or do whatever just to like be social. Um, and see humans. But yeah, so I sort of started that stuff right away, and
Got it.
and the
Well,
one-legged climbing definitely was like huge for me, just to feel like freedom of movement and just to like feel like I was doing something.
that's amazing. I mean, that was the next thing I was going to ask, is just like, what did it feel like to go back? Because I mean, having had much less serious injuries, I know that after a couple months or something of not climbing, or even just not climbing the way you want to, like that feeling of like finally getting on the wall again is just like such an amazing thing.
Huge. And just like to move my body, because like the house we were living at the time, was an older home, and the bathroom was upstairs with the bedroom. So there was nothing downstairs.
Okay.
So I lived in the bedroom, basically.
Yeah.
And the only time I could get downstairs is if there was somebody to like help me get down the stairs. And then carry my wheelchair from upstairs downstairs for me. So I basically lived in one room for 3 months, with the exception of like when my husband would come home, and like he would sometimes take me to the mall so I could like wheel
around
and do like laps in the mall, because I just had this like urge to like move my body. And so, so being able to climb the climbing gym, or like, sort of towards the end of the wheelchair, when I was in the boots, I started pool therapy. And so, because, you know, they have the pool set at like different volumetric heights to take off body weight. So I could go in like up to my neck, and I could actually walk a little bit and shuffle. And I remember like the first time I got in there, like I immediately started like swimming because I just wanted to move. And they were like, no, you're not cleared to swim. You are walk only.
Okay.
Because I was just like craving that freedom of movement.
Oh, I'm sure.
So bad.
Well, I mean, there's like there's a lesson in here about like how much we take for granted that like some people live their whole life with like lower degrees of mobility, lower degrees of freedom. So, but yeah, in this case, amazing that you had access to that kind of resource. I mean, and
yeah.
Yeah.
Huge. And speaking of that, like consciousness of, limited mobility, like I have a whole new appreciation for what it could be like to be confined to a wheelchair. I mean, the number of places that like we couldn't go because it was not wheelchair accessible. Or there were times where we'd go to a restaurant and I'd get up to use the restroom and I could not open the restroom door by myself because it was too heavy, and with me being in the wheelchair. So I would literally sit outside the restroom until somebody else would have to use the restroom and then could open the door and let me in. And like, these are things that we for sure take for granted.
You don't think about. Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's quite a journey. So 4-ish months, you start top roping one-legged. What does it look like 8 months, 1 year, 2 years later? Like at what point are you like, okay, I'm, ready to like maybe take a fall again, or like have a project again?
Yeah. So actually the timing of things worked out like really fortuitously for me, because I did not miss a climbing season because, this happened at the end of November. And then come spring, I'm starting to top rope outdoors again, and like managing to like, if my friends carried all the gear, I can like crawl my way out to the crag and top rope. So I can't remember if I led anything that season, but I definitely was at least top roping and climbing. And so, it was pretty
Was there a
amazing.
point? I mean, I know you were only warming up to get on Predator the day that you got hurt, that you didn't actually like, get on your project that day. But was there a point where you were like, I need to like do the thing that I was like set on? Because I know that every time I've gotten a, not a serious injury, but just like the kind of injuries that come with climbing really hard, you tweak your shoulder or you tweak a finger or something like that. Every time that's happened to me on a project, or actually like I tore my TFCC on a project, and it was like, day whatever, after 3 days of moping around, you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to do that thing that I hurt
Oh,
myself
yeah.
on. You know what I mean? Like, was that just in the back of your mind the whole
Oh,
time? Or
100%. Like, it makes me think of, like, I can't remember the movie right now, but there's a movie where it's like, nobody makes me bleed my own blood. Maybe it's Dodgeball or something,
I
but
think
it's
it's
like,
dodgeball.
yeah, but I'm like, oh, for sure. And not only just, going back for Predator, but like as soon as I started leading again, I was like, I need to go lead Sally's Alley. And so that was like one of the first leads. Like, it might have been either the first day I started leading again or the second day. I was like, I got to do this, because if I don't, it's going to become a thing. We did stick clip the first bolt.
Smart.
But then, yeah, I'm a big fan of the stick clips now. We stick clip all the things.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I knew I had to get that out of my system. And then I started sort of working towards getting myself back in shape enough to to get back on Predator. It took me a long time. I don't know if it was mental. I don't know if it was physical, but like, there were a couple seasons where I got really close, like one hanging it, but couldn't get it done. So I think it wasn't until 2021 that I actually got Predator. I sent a different 13 before that, because I was like, all right, this thing is too in my head. So like, I need to find something else, get a win, and then come back to it. And then I did come back to it and was able to do it.
That's amazing. We love
Yeah.
a full circle comeback
Who
story for
doesn't?
sure.
Who doesn't?
What does your climbing look like these days? Like, it didn't really sound from the story like your back really held you back too much, but I know that there was further
No.
kerfuffles with your ankles.
Yeah. I mean, my back is, it's arthritic, like, but I'm old, so like, who knows? I might have gotten that anyway. But yeah, that's not a hindrance. The real only sort of struggle is the ankle. So since the, I guess, second surgery, I had another surgery to remove the hardware, because we hoped that would help with some of my pain. And also, the surgeon told me, like, you're going to need more surgery. This is like, I did the best I could, but like, it's bad. Like, I damaged the cartilage pretty bad. And so, the bone is just going to keep rubbing up against the bone and creating more damage and more pain. So, so I sort of, kind of struggled through it for about 10 years and like continued climbing and started sending 13s again and like doing really well. But the pain was just getting bad. It was like slowly but surely I was like kind of cutting things out of my life. Like, okay, no more snowboarding. Like, okay, no more long approaches. Like, okay, I can only wear these shoes, like, cause it was just getting so degraded. And then, I was really starting to think about actually amputating, because it was just, the pain was really inhibiting me more than anything else. And I just want to keep climbing. And I was getting tired of kind of cutting all these things out of my life and making excuses like, I can't do this thing anymore. And then a friend of a friend reached out to me that they had heard about this doctor in New York who was doing this really special surgery called ankle distraction arthroplasty, where basically they put you in an external fixator. So like, think like a halo. I don't know if you've ever seen like the halo that people have like around their head sometimes or something like that, but they put it around your ankle and they basically like pull apart the joint to try and recreate the gap that had been closing on me. And then they kind of clean up the joint. And
that takes a long time, right?
It does.
Okay.
Yeah. So after meeting with the surgeon, he's like, I think you're a candidate for this. And if you're thinking about amputation, like, this is not a cure. This is another stopgap. Like, this will buy you some more time. He's like, but I think it could buy you, 5 or 10 years of less pain. And at this point, like, I'm like, all right, well, the other option is cut it off. So like, why not? Like, let's try. I can still cut it off if it doesn't work.
Yeah, but you can't cut it off first and then try this later. So it kind of makes sense. Do it in this order.
Exactly. So it made sense to do it in this order. And it was getting pretty bad. Like, I was literally at night crawling up the stairs, to go to bed, hopping around the house. Like, it was really getting pretty bad. Like, I was climbing because I was not willing to compromise that, but I was paying the price. So this was at the end of 2022, we went with the surgery. And basically what it entailed was him re-breaking my tib and fib completely, because it combination of like how they put me back together and just walking in pain for so long. My left foot was kind of turned out by 10 degrees. So I was like kind of duck-footed with my left foot, and limping pretty obviously bad. And so he rebroke all of that. And then by putting me in this external fixator with like multiple levels where it's like going through the bone and all these wires going through your foot, and they attached these struts at different like angles around all the hoops that are going around my leg. And they have numbers on them. And every day you're changing the numbers and it's slowly rotating your bones, and it's rotating in all planes. So it's rotating, clockwise, counterclockwise. It's rotating like at an angle vertically and down. I guess I don't really know how to describe that. And also at the same time, they're pulling apart the gap. Wow. And so I was in this thing for 4 months. They told me it was going to be 3 months. And then he's like, yeah, you're not ready yet. You need another month, which at the time felt pretty devastating.
I'm sure.
To be honest,
this sounds, you obviously were in a bad way. Like you didn't, you were kind of at your wit's end, it sounds like, but so this is like your last way out. But at the same time, like this does not sound like a pleasant way to pass several months.
No. And if I'm being honest, this process was so much more mentally grueling for me than the accident.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was like partly because, mentally it was just challenging to like give up something for hope of something. When I had the accident, I had no choice. Like, this is what it is.
Right.
But here I chose to do this thing, hoping that it would help me with no guarantee. And so the whole time I'm thinking like, am I making the right call? Because like I finally started sending 13s again, and now I'm starting all over again. Like, is this the right call? Like, should I have just chalked it off and been done with it? Because I knew this wasn't a fix. This is a temporary
fix. It's such a sign
fix.
that you're like a climbing junkie, that you're like, these other things in your life, you're losing access to, like snowboarding or like certain types of hiking or whatever. And you're like, okay, maybe that's upsetting me. I'll try this other thing. But then what's running through your mind is like, but I was climbing 513. So like maybe actually everything was totally okay. Like we'll just make any deal with ourselves if we think we can keep climbing harder.
Oh yeah. And like I pained over this decision to have this surgery for months. 4 months being like, is my pain really that bad? Like, can I be okay with this? And like, because I like didn't love the idea of starting over again. It was a lot of hard work to get back to where I was, just to get back to where I was, let alone like actually make progress, and so the thought of doing that again was tough. And then again, this was, a very isolating experience. So this time, I'm missing more of like spring comes around. I'm still stuck in my house with this thing. And so feeling pretty isolated about it. And I think because I wasn't in as much pain for my whole body, I was more focused on this thing. I don't know, but mentally for me, it was like so much more challenging. Or maybe because I knew what I was in for, and the first time I was blissfully unaware of how challenging it would be to like get back to myself. But anyway, so I was in this thing for 4 months, changing my dials 4 times a day, adjusting my ankle. And then that thing came off at 4 months, and then I went into a hard cast for a bit. Then I went into a boot for a bit. And then I was able to start, physical therapy on it. And
Wow.
and it was rough. That was rough. The pain I experienced after this surgery was far more than the pain from the previous. Because I don't know, maybe I'm older, or because they changed the angle, or just the aggressiveness of the surgery. But it was probably 6 months after they took the fixator off that I was finally like, okay, this might be worth it. But
This
all
worked.
those 6
Okay.
months
Wow.
afterwards, I was in more pain than I was in before the surgery. And I was like, what did I do? Like, I fucked it
Yeah.
all up.
It's
So
like,
yeah, it was.
it's such a hard thing to make a decision like that. I mean, all along this story, I've like wanted to ask you, I keep wanting to ask you, like, what advice you would have for other people who would go through something like this. But it's just like, you're even when if you had the advice of other people and you could compare other stories to yours and stuff, like, it just becomes such an intensely personal thing, because it's so, even a doctor, it's so subjective. Like, a doctor can't tell you
They don't know.
whether your pain is really bad or what you should do.
Yeah,
But I'm
right.
still curious, like, what advice you would have for people who go through, I would qualify this as a life-changing injury. I'm not sure if you call it that, but
Me too.
other people
Yeah.
who have gone through life-changing injuries, what would you say to them?
I mean, I can only speak for myself and what helped me, but for what helped me was always feeling like I was working towards getting back to myself as soon as possible. So, and that was like one-legged top roping the first time. And the second time around, I actually, I had just started working with a climbing coach before I decided to have the surgery. And she was like, all right, well, we can put this on pause until you're back. And I'm like, no, like, I want to keep going. Like, what can we do? And
Nice.
so, we kept hangboarding. We kept doing weights. We did whatever we could do because I needed to have structure. I needed to do something. So for me, feeling like I'm making progress and moving towards something is essential for my well-being. And I think most people feel like they need to have something they're striving for. Because otherwise you're just stuck in your head depressed, right? But like, if you're making gains on something, whether it be fingerboarding or the amount of weight you're picking up or the reps, like, I think
You feel like you're moving.
that helps morale. Like,
Totally. Yeah, and it's like, we don't talk enough, I think, in the climbing community about like the isolating nature of like serious injuries, because it's not, I'm sure that people who play pickleball, or like, I'm so divorced from reality, I don't even know what normal people do anymore, but I'm sure people who play other sports like do take them very seriously. But for a lot of climbers, like, it really is our whole life. And so when you're not climbing, especially when you have boot on that prevents you from even like getting out of the house and stuff, like, it is a huge chunk of your world that's been like taken away from you, and that's just very isolating.
For sure. I mean, I barely have friends that don't climb. Like, it is our entire life, really. So yeah, it's extremely isolating. Yeah.
Is that
tough.
the point? You mentioned earlier that you didn't see a therapist at the first time around. So was this fixator experience, was that when you did wind up having to go that
No,
route?
it was actually after, so before the chosen surgery, when I was like one hanging all these 13s, but couldn't put them together. And I was like, okay, there's something going on here that is maybe not physical. Because at that point I was working with a trainer and I'm doing hard things. And so that's when I started with a therapist to just see if there was something going on there. And I did send some 13s after that. So I don't know if it helped or if it just, put me at ease to like process, or I'm not sure. But yeah,
Therapy is another
I
one
do
of those
think
like
that helps.
very subjective things where it's like, it's not, we want things to be so outcome based. I think that's like an American culture thing, but therapy is, you really just go and you just go like blah, and then later you feel better, hopefully. Like, it's not really like
exactly. Honestly, sometimes I think people just want to be validated. And so having somebody
Yeah.
validate that, like, yeah, you've gone through a hard thing. Like, this is
Yeah.
hard. And
Yeah.
it probably is impacting your ability to do hard things. And so
Totally.
maybe just having somebody validate that was enough. Um,
Yeah.
so
I
yeah,
mean,
so I think highly recommend it, you know.
totally. Yeah. I mean, it's part of what that sprang into mind for me. I'm not sure exactly why, but whenever I'm like teaching, people or I'm talking about like risk management and climbing, I always like have this, litany of injuries that I've witnessed that I can say like, bouldering is like really dangerous. Here's all the horrible things I've seen. And like one of the things I saw was I saw a person slip off of a frozen top out on a boulder and she broke her back and had to get medevaced. But
Yeah.
the funny part about that story is that like I was there for the rescue and I knew this person and then I saw her again in the same place the following year. And she was just totally normal and fine. And she had like almost no negative effects from it, to the point that like, I mean, I knew her and I knew she recovered from it and everything. But when I was talking to her about it, I was like, it's all like, I can't even tell that you broke your back, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah. It's like that. I guess it's just kind of, everybody's experience is unique, I suppose.
It's what and so it seems normal to you. And sometimes I do have to remind myself when I get frustrated with myself when I'm not climbing where I want to be, that I've been through something and that, lots of people maybe would have just given up and not come back after the first time and then not come back after the second time. And so trying to remind myself to be kinder to myself when I'm feeling that frustration come in.
Yeah. I mean, that's good advice for everybody. 100%.
Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier about with your back, like that you feel like it's arthritic, but you don't know if that would have happened anyway. And I'm just thinking it's no comparison to having gone through an outright trauma like what you did, but anybody who's a life climber, like a lifer, like me or you or anyone else who's been doing it for a long time. Like I've taken a lot of falls and there is a chronic effect of those falls. Like my body, I have traumatic things that have definitely changed and things that my body will never do because of trauma, but definitely because of the use over time. The chronic change is very real also, and I think it's like I keep having to say that. You keep having to qualify because I definitely have not fallen off a cliff and broken my back and broken my ankle. Yeah. I feel the need to. But yeah, it's worthwhile for all of us to have like some self-kindness and self-compassion because our bodies are all going to change and the way that we interact with the sport is going to change for everybody, right?
Right. And we're all going to get older, hopefully, right? And there's going to come a point where we're going to stop progressing, right? That is the reality of the sport that we do, right? People in their 70s are not climbing harder than they were in their 30s, right? And so we're just going to have to accept that at some point, the progress is going to slow or stop. And we have to find a way to keep enjoying what we're doing or we're going to stop. And I certainly don't want to stop. I hope that I will continue to find joy in some way, whether I'm just climbing 5.7s or whatever, because, I love rock climbing.
Yeah. And I've said a very similar thing to what you just said, but at the same time, I haven't given up yet. And not that it's giving up. Yeah, okay. Not that it's giving up to climb for fun.
I'm still training and I'm still hoping I can squeak out some more games. Like I don't think I'm done yet.
Hell yeah.
But it's certainly possible, but I'm certainly not pulling back. Like,
yeah,
that's for sure. I'm training harder, like as much as I can. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just subjective, but I feel like even though I don't train nearly as much as I did 15 years ago, like I'm so much smarter about it that actually I can go a lot harder than I could then in certain ways.
I call it my tricks. Like I have tricks now, like maybe I'm not as strong as I was. I don't know, but I've got tricks and technique. And, I think those can carry me a little bit. Sometimes when I see the young, stronger climbers, I'm like, yeah, but you don't get the tricks yet.
So true. So much of climbing is tricks. What are you working on now in your climbing?
Yeah, so I have been since the most recent ankle surgery. I've been working on this climb at Rumney called Côte d'Azur, which is not going to be the hardest grade I've done if I do it. But for me personally, it will be the hardest thing I've ever tried. It is the most outside of my wheelhouse, the most bouldery
Mm,
thing.
mm.
And I got really close before the most recent ankle surgery, like one hanging it, almost sent it. And so I've been working on trying to get that thing. Last year, again, I got really close. And so this year I decided I'm taking a break from it. I'm going to rebuild some momentum. So this year I'm actually focusing on climbs that I've kind of dismissed because I thought they were too scary for me with my ankle. Like they were a little bit slabby, or I was just like nervous about a fall. And so I'm trying to sort of reevaluate those, like talking with my partners and my friends, like, hey, do we think this is like rational, not rational? Like how real is this risk? Because
Huh.
this is a struggle for me is to figure out what is a rational risk and not, because the fear creeps back for me for sure. I don't
Yeah.
want to hit my ankle. It's painful to hit my ankle. It is fragile. So it's very easy for me to fall into a place of being like, I'm only getting on steep things. I'm not getting in on anything vert, but I don't want that to be me.
Hmm.
And I don't want to miss out on opportunities that I could be doing. So I'm trying to refocus on some of those climbs through conversation, with belayers about like, is this a reasonable risk for me to take? And trying to tick off some of the maybe easier climbs that I've avoided. And so I've done a couple so far this year, so that's been great. So I'm hoping to just kind of keep building that momentum, and then either maybe in the fall if I'm feeling good, or next year get back on Coat
Cool.
is the
Was it
plan.
like was it introspective or a chat with your coach or something? Like, how did you come up with the idea of like revisiting these routes and expanding your comfort zone? I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, and it was on me. It's been a little while since I've actually sent something because I've been focusing my attention on this hard thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just was starting to feel like I was just really beating my head against the wall, and in the long run limiting my growth because
Hmm.
I'm just focused on this thing and missing all these other potential opportunities. So, yeah, so just figured like, okay, let's lower the bar strength wise, but raise the bar, mental
Yeah.
wise.
Smart.
Was kind of, yeah, my thought process. And it's also just kind of the way I've been thinking about this as I'm aging, that like, I want to make sure that I keep finding ways to grow when I can't
Hmm.
get stronger. And although I don't think I'm there yet, I want to be thinking about this because I want to make sure that like I'm doing this sport for the rest of my life. And so
Totally.
I want to think about how I can grow in other ways other than just pushing the grade up.
Yeah. I think it's super smart. I mean, and you've already mentioned like we all are going to run up against not being able to progress any further. That's 100% true. I think this will be episode 40 or something. I've probably said that 10 times on the podcast because I'm just a serial capital
It's
S
true.
stoic. But like at the same time, even setting aside age, like the way that grades work for everybody, it's just very likely that some of the hardest things you ever do are not going to be the hardest grade you ever do. And also vice versa, like probably the hardest grades you ever climb will not be the hardest climbs necessarily. And so it
Mm-hmm.
pays to like experience a broad range of different things that make climbs challenging. And I think it's really smart to go back and just be like, okay, for whatever reason, I wrote off this whole class of
Yeah.
things. And like now I'm going to like go back and, why not like see if I can push it a little bit there.
Yeah.
I think that's really smart.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been fun. And I've actually sent 2 things already this year. So yay me.
Yeah, nice. Are you a serial red pointer? Do you not send very many routes?
I guess, what do you mean by serial red pointer? Like,
So like
you have
I
to
used to climb
project
at Smith.
things?
Yeah, I used to climb at Smith, right? Where it's like, some people who climb at Smith are like incredibly efficient and they do actually get through a lot
Yeah.
of routes, but there's just a lot of the culture of people who climb at Smith are like, the whole spring season, every single day is like the two same warm-up routes, and then they go to the 113C and they try it 3 times, and then that's the whole season. And then in fall, and then they train all summer, and then in fall they're back on the same route. And I'm like, you've been on this route for like 60 days, my friend. Like, what are you doing?
Oh,
you know?
got it. So, not by choice. I actually much prefer to on-site. I think that is the funnest.
Cool.
But I've been climbing at Rumney now for 20 something years.
Yeah.
So I've on-sited what I can on-site, and what's left now are projects. When we travel, I do not project. I don't give anything more than 2 tries max. I only try and on-site, because for me, that's the funnest is figuring it out on the go, like sloppy, gritty, just make it happen. I actually am really bad at remembering beta. So often that is one of the struggles for me on projecting, that like sometimes my first go will go amazing, and then the next 10 goes are atrocious until I finally remember it. And then it starts to come together, because I usually find I climb best with my intuition, just like my body doing its thing. And when I try and remember, but can't because my memory is terrible, it makes it a million times worse.
Yeah, and expectations creep in, and you get frustrated and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty common...
I thought I did it this way, you know?
Yeah, that's a common experience. And I mean, even, coaching bouldering and like watching boulderers, like I see that all the time where, I'll ask people what they did, and they'll say they did such and such. And then I'm like, oh yeah, let's do it again. And then they try to do it again, and they're like, oh, actually, yeah, no, that's not what I did. Like, it's just hard for us to rely on our sensory memory for some reason. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but...
Yeah. When I'm climbing, I'm very much... or I should say, when I'm climbing my best, I'm very much just in my body, like not thinking about anything, not remembering beta. I'm just like doing what my body needs to do on the fly. And that's actually my favorite kind of climbing. I actually dislike trying to memorize and force something.
Yeah, cool.
But
I bet traveling
if I want
is
to
just
climb
awesome
the
then,
yeah. And that's why I love to travel and get on new things of every grade. If that thing has stars, I am like a star whore. I don't care if it's 5.5. If it has 5 stars, I'm doing it. Like, I want all the stars. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Okay. We had a couple other things that we sort of wanted to just chat about for a few minutes. So I'm curious to talk about these things too. And actually, I almost interrupted the recovery story to ask about the climbing advocacy work, because I was just curious how those things intertwined. But when did you start doing climbing advocacy work?
Yeah, it actually is not related at all.
Okay.
It just more came about that, I finally came to the realization in life that I am using the system and not putting into the system, right? Going to Rumney every weekend, climbing on the bolts, climbing on these trails or hiking on these trails, and a yearly donation didn't seem like it was a fair trade. When I saw a position open, I'm friends with the co-presidents, and I just reached out and I was like, hey, like, would you want me to take that position, or apply for the position or whatever. And so, that's just how it started. So I am, secretary on the board for the Rumney Climbers Association, which is the climbing governing body for, Rumney specifically. The way it is in New England is different areas have different, organizations. So there's no like governing body for all of, say, New England, or even for all of New Hampshire. And so, the RCA is in charge of, maintaining trails, bolting, making sure things are safe, keeping up on the gear, and all of that kind of stuff for the community to utilize. So.
Gotcha. And when was it you started doing that, you said?
I started, let's see, I want to say maybe 3 years ago, close to 3 years ago is when I joined on.
Okay.
It's been a fully established board for a very long time.
Gotcha.
And they've done amazing work, actually purchased all the land and then donated it to the Forest Service so that it could be maintained, for the public. And then the Forest Service kind of lets us control sort of what's going on. It's all owned by the Forest Service now.
That's amazing. I mean, coming from the Northwest, and like a lot of my climbing has been on the western half of the states. And I just visited Chattanooga for the first time this spring. And I was like kind of surprised at how much of the land is private there. And I guess that's or what people were telling me is that that's a big thing just on the East
It's a problem.
in general, is that there's a lot more private land. Yeah, is access other than Rumney, is access like a concern in a lot of other areas?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There is actually just a huge access issue at another popular climbing area in Massachusetts, Western Mass climbing. And the trail access to the climbing was on private land and has been used that way for many years. And the owners decided they didn't want climbers using it anymore. And that makes it so that even though the climbing is not on that land, access becomes a big issue. So yeah, there's a lot of areas in New England where access is very challenging. So I think it's even more important to have these LCOs, not just to make sure things are safe, but to make sure that access is accessible, right? And that climbers are following the rules so that we're not upsetting the locals so that access gets threatened.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's nice, like, obviously a member of the Access Fund, and like it's nice now that when you pay for the Access Fund, they just have a thing on there that's like, do you want us to, also donate to your LCO at the same time? And that's a good way to find out what your LCO is if you don't know for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, most people probably have an inkling. But, here, I've climbed here for 20 years, and I used to spend a ton of time like camping in this parking lot that you're not supposed to camp in anymore. But now there's like porta potties in that parking lot, and there's porta potties like up and down the canyon and stuff. And it's like all that. I'm not sure if people know that, but like all that is possible because of having an LCO, and so it's nice to have those sort of benefits and to make people directly aware of them. I'm sure you guys have things like that in Romney as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I will say that the New England community is great. So like this access issue in Western Mass, community came together, raised the money to move the trail to land that is accessible. Like
cool.
$250,000 raised.
Whoa. Yeah. Wow.
Like, yeah, by donors and climbers. And so, the community here is amazing.
Cool. So do you would you like do rebolting and participate with that stuff directly, or do you just participate in like an administrative capacity?
Yeah, administrative. Okay. Yeah. One, I don't have the skill set. And two, at this point, my ankle is on borrowed time, right? Like the odometer is ticking. And so I really still try to prioritize like how I'm utilizing my ankle. So I am not lugging around heavy gear. I'm not doing trail days. I will use time. I will use money. I will support in other ways. Gotcha. So there are much more qualified people to do that kind of work than me as well.
Gotcha. So other than donate money, what should people do to help their local climbing organization? Or is there anything you would recommend in terms of advocacy?
Great question. For sure. If you have the resources, if you have the money, donate money. If you don't have money, you can donate time, right? Like if you don't have the time to donate to any of these events that are happening, such as like trail days or whatnot, I think just being a good steward and a good role model at the cliff, to me, that's important, right? You see somebody doing something unsafe, speak up, right? You see a bolt that looks funky, let us know. Those kinds of things are also important. You see somebody's dog poo on the ground. I know it's not your dog, but grab a stick, grab a bag, take care of it. Those are other ways that you can support the community if you don't have, the time and the money otherwise.
Yeah, basically just have good ethics.
That's a great place to start for sure.
Act well. That totally makes sense. I mean, I guess that's a good way to think about it. It's amazing to me that they came together and raised that much money to save that crag. Did you say the name of the crag? Farley. Farley. Okay.
Oh
yeah. Wow.
Bouldering and rope climbing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very popular area. And so one big donor, anonymous donor, or at least anonymous to me, came in with, I think, like 125,000 and said, if you can donate, get the rest in this amount of time, I will match that. And so
Hmm.
that went a huge way. And then, yeah, everybody stepped up with what they could, where they could, and came
Cool.
together. It's amazing.
That's amazing. Do you see climbing advocacy like continuing to play a major role in your climbing life for the future?
Yeah, I would like to keep supporting where I can. Like I said, I'm not going to provide any physical support at this time, but as long
Hmm.
as, there's a use for me in other ways, yeah, happy to keep supporting as long as they'll have me.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, part of the reason that I got into coaching and do things like the podcast, which the podcast is like adjacent to my coaching, but it's not like, it's also just like a pet project, because I'm just a geek, basically. Like, that's really what it comes down to. And I got into a lot of that stuff just because I wanted other ways to like stay connected to the sport, because I just can't physically go climbing as much as I used to. I mean, I'm sure you can relate. It's like, 20 years ago, it's just, I just could climb 5 days a week.
5 days a
go down to
week,
Bishop.
straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
9-day trip to Bishop. Like, I'm climbing for 9 days. You know what I mean? Like, it was like pretty
Yeah.
much just how it goes. And things definitely change. We've talked about the injuries and about bodies changing. And when we had our pre-interview, we talked about all this other stuff. And then you kind of just like slipped in there at the very end. You were like, also, if you want to talk about perimenopause, I'd be willing to talk about that.
Sure.
And I don't know that I'm like the perfect podcast host to have that conversation, but I'm definitely willing to have it. And part of the reason I'm willing to have it is because I'm not sure that I've really heard it talked about very much in the climbing space. So I know it's a little bit of a hard right turn from the climbing advocacy subject, but
No
I am I am curious. I mean, you're someone who's already been through a lot of change, and you strike me as being very like resilient and maybe even a little bit stubborn. Compliment in a good way.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I'm curious just what effect it's had on your climbing and how long you've been dealing with it.
Yeah. So full disclosure, I am by no means a perimenopause expert. I've been doing some reading, read some books and whatnot, but I can certainly comment on my experience. So, so my experience is it's been really rough for me. I felt totally blindsided by this. One, I don't have a relationship with my mom, but two, I don't think this is something we would have discussed anyway. And, and I guess three, I think the impacts on an athlete, I think, are a bit different than the impacts on, say, maybe an everyday average person, or at least that's my impression. But for me, it has hit me hard, and I felt totally blindsided because in my mind, it was just like hot flashes, whatever.
Right.
That's menopause, hot flashes before you stop having a cycle, and then the end.
That's that.
And
yeah.
that has not been the experience for me. In fact, I feel, and I could be just looking for rationalization, but I feel this is the reason I could not send coat last year, because I got on coat the first day of the spring and one hung it. And I was like, okay,
wow,
we're going this
down.
year. Like, it's going down. And then it all fell apart. And I started getting all these crazy symptoms, like super emotional, like crying on my way driving to the cliff. And I'm not a crier. Like, that is like, my husband and I will joke sometimes that I'm a little bit like Spock. Like he's much more like sensitive and aware of emotions, and I'm just like, this is the way it is, like whatever.
Well, we just spent an hour talking about a catastrophic climbing injury, and there was not a single tear mentioned the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't think I cried at all during any of my accident or recovery, really. But anyway, so like for me to cry driving to the cliff to go climbing on a gorgeous day is strange. Like, that was weird.
Yeah.
And so I'm having like all these like emotional outbursts and inability to like control my emotions, like literally wanting to punch people in the grocery store because they're walking too slow in front of me. Like, these are just like not normal behaviors for me. And when I say wanting to punch somebody, I'm really not exaggerating. Like blinding rage. Like
Wow.
weird, just weird. And then, separate from like kind of the emotional stuff, like I was having a really hard time just like activating try hard. Like it was just like there was no oomph in my ability to climb. Um, and I was, not sleeping at all, like just
Hmm.
not sleeping at all and having like such crazy like night sweats that I would be changing my pajamas multiple times in a night. Like
Hmm.
just all these like really crazy, um, weird symptoms and pain. Like I would just wake up and like my shoulder hurts today and I don't know why. I didn't do a thing. And then 2 days later that would be gone and then my knee hurts and so I was just kind of like fumbling through all these things, kind of like attributing them to other like weird things like, oh, well, maybe this is a thing or maybe this is a thing, and chasing down all these random rabbit holes for basically all summer and into the fall, trying to like figure out what is going on. And the other really crazy thing that was happening and that I'm still struggling with a little bit is like this feeling like I'm low blood sugar, um, even if I'm not. Like, I don't know
Hmm.
if this is like a female thing or if like a common thing, but like feeling like you're gonna pass out, like you're really faint and like shaky and like you get really pale. Like that
Yep.
was happening to me all the time. And so like imagine trying to like send your hardest climb and you're like
For sure.
shaking and feeling like you're gonna pass out on the cliff. It was like, so I just like, yeah. So I kind of just like pulled back on climbing towards the end of last year and just focused on training because like physical training, like lifting weights felt fine, like because there was no like performance aspect. So I just really focused on that. And then finally got clued in that like, oh, maybe this is perimenopause. Because I think I saw something on Instagram and I was like, oh, light bulb, like all these
Yeah.
weird symptoms that I can't correlate with anything. Like I'm not dying of cancer. Maybe I'm just in perimenopause. Um, and then I went to the doctor and thankfully it was a good doctor that was like open to the idea because some of my other female friends have not been so lucky.
Hmm.
Because there's still like a lack of knowledge around perimenopause.
Yep.
A lot of the current doctors who are in the industry maybe had like a 1 hour course on perimenopause. Now they're teaching it, but it's going to take time for that to filter into like doctors today. You know what I mean? Um,
Totally.
so yeah, I got on some hormones. We've been adjusting them quite a bit because, we're kind of shooting at a moving target, right? Like
Yep.
my hormones are dropping, right? So like we have to keep kind of changing. So every couple of months, my symptoms kind of start creeping back, but at least now I know what's happening. So like when I'm wanting to flip out at my husband over peppercorns, I am clued in that there's something happening. Whereas
Yeah.
before I was just like, I don't know why I'm yelling at you right now. Like but I can't stop. Now I know. And obviously he's super supportive and like he's been well educated. So now he also, understands what's going on. But, so we're just going to kind of keep playing with the hormones and, things are better. I would say, I still have all my crazy symptoms, but it's like the dial went from 10 to 2, like
Hmm.
everything is just so much more manageable. Um,
Got it.
and that was also, I guess, kind of the other reason I decided to pull back on the physicality of the climbing projects I'm choosing and go more into the mental because it just seems like a little bit more manageable to do
Okay.
that right now until I kind of, I guess, stabilize or get to the other side of this or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, definitely if you're not sleeping well and things like sleep are affected, like your
of
recovery is
course.
affected, that's going to really affect your ability to like give a good physical performance. Not that, I mean, mood swings can definitely play havoc with trying to climb a scary route as well. But
Oh,
you can
yeah.
just be very selective about your timing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, the main partner that I was climbing with towards the end of last year, like, thank God this man is like a saint. Because like,
Uh-huh,
I would literally be crying while climbing. And he's just like,
uh-huh.
it's okay. You're fine. Like, do you want to come down or you want to keep going? Like, he was just like super supportive and super understanding. And, I've been kind of just telling everybody I know and climb with what's going on because I just think that, you know, if you're not a female who's going to go through this, you're a male who's going to have a friend or a partner or a wife or whatever who is. And so I
Yeah.
just think people should be aware so that they can, be supportive.
It's like, it's just another one of those things that I feel like we, at least, maybe I'm just an ignorant man, but I feel like it's something that I, don't remember hearing much about when I was younger,
No,
for
no.
sure. And like, maybe only because I'm a coach and I have had a bunch of clients who are women in their 30s and 40s. Like, I, became more aware of it, and like, obviously learned about it a
Totally.
little bit with the endocrinology side of like learning about strength and conditioning and stuff. And I think it seems like a lot of things are moving in the right direction. I know like a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
research on women in strength and conditioning is like, that area of research is growing very rapidly because they were like, oh, maybe we should do research on other populations besides college age men, essentially.
Men.
So it does seem
Totally.
like we're learning
What do you
we're
know?
learning some more things. Yeah. Kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you said that your relationship with strength training has stayed really strong because that's something that's like felt good for you.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've been like kind of just pushing it harder, or are you actually like kind of replacing some of your climbing practice with more strength training? Does that make sense?
I think I'm pushing it harder. I don't think I'm replacing because, I think my coach is doing an amazing job, just balancing and
Hmm.
kind of keeping me towards my climbing goals because ultimately, that's what I really want. Um,
Okay.
but I think we're balancing it from the standpoint of right now, the progress feels better in the strength training. So in terms of like my morale, feels better when I'm doing more strength training because
Yeah.
I'm getting some wins, right? Like you see the
100%,
weight go
dude.
up, like you
Yeah.
see the reps go up or the form gets better. There's something tangible. And so
Yeah.
I'm enjoying that because as we've discussed, I like to see something moving. I want to see the needle moving, and climbing
For
doesn't
sure.
always feel like the needle is moving, you know?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I just because I have a 7-month-old right now, like life is just different than it was before, definitely. But also,
Oh yeah.
I'm changing, and I mean, I'm in this funny position where I share a lot of my lifts on social media, not because
Mm-hmm.
they're impressive. They're 100% not impressive, but that's actually what I think is compelling about them is I'm like,
Yeah.
this is a healthy, important thing for you to be doing as a human being. And people will message me. They'll be like, should I deadlift? Is deadlifting good for climbing? Like I don't really know if I should be deadlifting as a climber. And I just literally want to be like, if you're going to deadlift, like, don't do it because of your climbing. Like, just do it because it's a good, probably thing to do as a human. But like, since we had
Mm-hmm.
the baby, I've found myself like more and more wanting to lift weights and to get better at lifting weights just because
Yeah.
it's such a more mentally and emotionally reliable thing to do with my time,
Yes.
to the point that now I'm like, it's obviously still supporting my climbing. It's not like I'm going to become a power lifter
Yeah.
anytime soon, right? But it's like, I've realized it's actually okay for me to have parts of my identity. They're not just fixated on whether I'm sending my next project. And that is
Totally.
good for my climbing for sure. You know what I mean?
Totally. Totally. Like I got so psyched this winter because I hit like a deadlift PR for me, which, I come from a
Nice.
family where nobody ever lifted weights. Like I am
Hmm.
probably the first person in my lineage to ever lift a weight. So like the
Nice.
thought of like hitting this particular number for me was just like never even in my concept that would ever be a possibility. And then like,
Awesome.
yeah, psyched, psyched.
Do you have, like, other than strength training, any other things that you think have been really helpful for you going through perimenopause?
Um, let's see. Anything?
Obviously,
I mean, I
hormones.
think, yeah, the drugs. Give me the drugs. Yeah. I am I've been telling everybody, just get the drugs, like better living through chemistry, take the drugs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I think learning about it has been helpful because, you know, when I first didn't know what was going on, I felt like a crazy person and I had a lot of shame because I'm not typically one to snap at somebody or like give like a short response. And I was doing that to my husband. And then I was feeling so much shame about like how I was treating him. And that was just making me more crazy because I'm like, why am I a horrible person? You know? And so I think, learning about it has really helped me because it helps me to understand that, it doesn't justify my behavior, but it helps me to understand why I'm reacting this way. So
Right.
yeah, I think that the drugs, learning, I feel like my eating habits that I've had for years have been helpful, but that hasn't changed. Like high protein, keeping tabs on fiber. Like I think those things are important for perimenopause, but I was kind of already doing those things beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of just like doing a better job on the fundamentals. Basically, it's like higher
Yeah.
higher consequence if you don't get the fundamentals right, which again feels
Yeah.
relatable. But I yeah, obviously my baby's going to grow up, so things will probably be a little bit different. Were there, as far as education, are there any resources that have been especially useful for you when you were trying to learn more about it?
Yes, I listened to like an audiobook called Roar, ROAR. Um and it's specifically from a woman in sports medicine. So it has the
Mm-hmm.
science component as well as like, wanting to perform at your best. So I found that very helpful, educational, and just like also just not feeling so alone because, I don't know a lot of other women who are going through this other than folks at my work, but they're not necessarily trying to perform at their best. So it's a
Right.
little bit different. And so, yeah, I found it really helpful to kind of see from that lens that's a little more similar to sort of my goals.
Cool. That's awesome. That's like the second time I've heard that book recommended, so I think it's time that I pick it
Yeah.
up for sure.
Yeah. And I think there was either Roar is the sequel or there's a sequel to Roar. I can't remember. That is more focused on perimenopause as opposed to more just like women in sports in general. So it has like a
Women
bigger
training.
focus. So yeah.
Gotcha. What about your coach? Is there anything that your coach has done? Because I know a lot of like coaches and coach adjacent people listen to the show. So is there anything that your coach has done to support you?
I mean, she's just amazing. Um, but yeah, I think just understanding, she's very understanding. And I think, this is new for her as well. And she also has
Okay.
other clients who are starting to go down this path. So I think it's probably been helpful for her to be able to be more knowledgeable and to share this. Um, but yeah.
Cool. Who's your coach? Will you shout her out?
Yeah, Sarah, you're the best from Climb Strong.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we're a equal opportunity coaching podcast here, so I'm not worried about anybody else
Cool.
encroaching on my area or anything like that. So good
Yeah.
coaches are good coaches.
Yeah, she's great. She's also
Awesome.
local, so she knows the area, so that helps too.
Yeah, totally. It really does make a big difference. That's great. I'm glad we took that little detour. Man, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground and talked about a lot of the stuff that we wanted to talk about, and it's just been a joy. I really appreciate you being so vulnerable and going into all that detail about the accident. I mean, obviously it's in the past
Sure.
and you're very tough, I can tell, but I still appreciate it. And I'm sure the audience does
Thanks.
too. So thank you so much for sharing all that.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and hopefully folks find it, entertaining or insightful, and yeah.
All right. Oh, I almost always, when somebody's like a traveling climber, I end by asking them if they prefer sandstone or granite, but I actually don't even know what is Rumney? I don't
Ooh.
even know what it is.
Rumney is schist,
It's schist.
which
Okay.
is, I think, is like a version of granite, but better. because it has
It's
texture
like on
and
the same.
features.
Oh, it's better. Ooh, interesting. Okay.
Ooh, I
The only
don't like
schist I've climbed
granite.
on is not good.
Oh no, Rumney is amazing. You get so many features. The rock does not polish easy. It's lovely. Yeah,
All
I do
right.
not like granite.
Let's
We have
just
granite here in the Northeast as well. I don't love it.
let's go with this question that's more general. What is the best rock type to climb on? How about that?
Ooh, God. Best rock type? I've only climbed on like sandstone, granite, schist, and limestone. I mean, how many more other types of rock are there that I'm
Well, I
missing?
think there's just like subtypes within there, but I think basalt would be
Okay.
a major category
I've
that you
never
haven't
climbed
climbed
on
on.
basalt. Um, I love limestone when it's new. I do not love limestone when it's not new. So I guess if I had the hierarchy, I would say freshly bolted limestone or schist, then
Nice.
granite, then polished limestone.
Nice. I love it. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much, Hillary, for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Anything else you want to leave people with?
No, I guess just, if anybody wants to chat, they can reach out to me via Instagram. I've talked to some folks who have been through similar circumstances. So if I can be a resource to anybody, feel free to reach out.
Amazing. Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a good day.
Thanks so much. Nice chatting with you.